We are humans, we are here, we are living from each other. We also have to contribute to each other. How long can I go out there and tell my story to inspire other people, young people, that it is not everything to go in a university, that there is different ways you can contribute. I'm a very, very privileged human being, that I'm allowed to do what I do in my age.
The Giving Habit, brought to you in partnership with the Majority Trust. Learn more about how they do philanthropy differently at majority.sg. We are recording today's episode from Smiling Gecko in Cambodia. Smiling Gecko is a sprawling 1,500 hectare complex about an hour and a half outside of Phnom Penh. It encompasses a farm, fish farming, vegetables, crops. I've seen carpentry workshops. There is a school on campus serving the needs of 500 school kids through primary and secondary education. And there's also a resort with truly world-class facilities. It's a wonderful place for guests to come and stay, but it also provides vocational training. Smiling Gecko is the brainchild of Hannes Schmid, artist, photographer and social entrepreneur. And Hannes joins me here this morning. Good morning, Hannes.
Good morning, Stefan. Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here and have a chat with you.
Likewise, I'm grateful for the opportunity. You have enjoyed a truly incredible career as an artist and a photographer, and I'm looking forward to the day when we get to sit down at a similar table and talk through that and shine a spotlight on your incredible career. But for now, I'd like to focus on Smiling Gecko for the purpose of this discussion, and maybe a good starting point would be the genesis of Smiling Gecko. I remember you recounted a story at a presentation in Singapore recently about a trip to Asia that really was the starting point for this journey. I wonder if you could recount that story now.
Well, actually, the story based in Singapore, because in '98 I discovered a Taoistic opera on a meadow in Punggol. Punggol was just a new emergency city in the city.
Yes.
And it was a Chinese theater. So from the distance, it was a very funny noise, not bearable music, but what I hear that it was an instrument was sticking out where has a similarity with Switzerland. It's one of our traditional instruments. It's like a wooden board with strings and you have spoons you play with. And that got my interest. So I went there and then they were shushing me away, so I was not allowed to take pictures. And then I realized this is a Taoistic ritual opera, and there was a lot of chairs. They were empty, but only for me. For the actors, they were occupied with ghosts, gods, and deities. And so, of course, they didn't want that I disturb, because maybe the gods get upset, and then they would punish me and them. So I was shushed away. But I didn't give up. So I became a member of this. Okay. And through this, I became so interested that I want to do a documentary about it, because I thought it's so amazing in a so modern city like Singapore. Suddenly you have actors, they play in front of empty chairs. How does they come together, right? So I start traveling in Asia. I hear that there is a Hungry Ghost Festival in Hong Kong. Then in Thailand, they have a lot of this Chinese community. And I ended up in Udon Thani, where I discovered the story of a girl where the father burned her with a blowtorch. The reason was he has financial difficulties. He's a rice farmer from Battambang, from Cambodia. And he wanted to sell his daughter. Nobody wanted, so he burned her. And like this, he sold her in a begging syndication. When I heard this story, I helped these girls to head operations, bring her back to Cambodia. And that's how I learned the story that there is 250, 300 children every year suffering from this kind of stories to go through. That's how I came to Cambodia.
Wow. And your first experience of living here in Cambodia was to immerse yourself within a particular community here. Is that right?
Well, when I put her in the orphanage, I learned that there is 10,000 of people living on dump sites. Very poor, mainly farmers. They lost their land. Either they couldn't pay their interest rates, or land grabbing is a big thing here. The land has been taken away because they don't have really sufficient papers. So I wanted to learn more. So me as an artist, of course, you go there, you start finding out, and I start living there, because I think this is not a one-day trip, not a one-week trip, not a one-month trip. I have to understand, what does it mean to live under this kind of circumstances? Child prostitution, illnesses, smoke who burns in your eyes, you can hardly breathe, and it stinks. You cannot imagine how it stinks. And people have to live from tearing these plastic bags who be dumped by the trucks every day, and they try to search for empty PET bottles and Coca-Cola cans, wires, and everything what's sellable, and everything what still is more or less edible, but there is not much left there, and it's mainly rotten already, chickens who smell, and stuff from beef and vegetables. And yeah, I became a part of it. So I was renting my own shed there, and I became a part of these families, and that's where I actually started my study. I consider today that I had a 1-year study into detail. Why are situations like this? Not only you find them in the Philippines, you find them in South America. Why does this happen? And why do we have over 5,000 NGOs in this country, UN and UNICEF, and it still happens? And why is nobody going to school? And why don't we give them the right to have an education? Yeah, so that was one year study I did. Right?
So for this incredibly kind of humble origin of spending so much time in that type of environment to where we are today with this incredible 1,500 hectare complex, maybe the question I have in my mind is, was that an organic development process? Did you have a very clear model right from the start? So was the development of Smiling Gecko intentional, or was it an organic learn as you grow process?
I had no idea. I mean, sorry, I'm an artist, first of all. So I was interested to take pictures and make videos. And then I thought I have to help these people. So that was completely organic. I saw that the children, undernourished, the mothers had no milk when they gave birth to a baby because they were undernourished, and I not even knew the consequences really that time of what it means when a child has to grow up with not enough proteins and vitamins and everything it needs, And then, of course, the hygienic standard, this was horrifying. We were living, in the shit. We had everywhere rotten. We were up to the legs in that stinky liquid, like green colors. We had no clean water. So, you start to help. It's intentionally. You start to help. So what do? I buy rice, right? So at the end it was like about 10 tons of rice every 2 weeks, right? And then I start to realize this baby dying because the mothers, they have not enough milk, right? And they don't have money or very little money to buy milk powder. So buying milk powder, right? More than 800, 900 cans, every month. And then I realized our water is contaminated. They still were dying, even having milk powder, because typhoid and everything, it was just given 1-to-1 through the water to the children. So then I started to understand that I have to build up a system, right? Really, I not even knew what kind of system. But for me, it was clear. The first thing is, why do these children, and there are a couple of thousand on the dump site, why don't they go to school? So then I was limited in money. I mean, I made a little bit money as a photographer. So my wife were sending money to the bank, right, to the Canadian bank. And then I was putting together 250 kids, Then I was building 12 tuk-tuks because they cannot walk, It's 16 kilometers. So then I put them on the tuk-tuks. And then I knew that you need to have a school uniform. Otherwise, you can't go to school. So I built a school uniform. But when we arrived at the school, we were stinking, smelly, because I do not even smell anymore how bad we were smell. Our clothes were dirty, our feet were dirty. I mean, I have put that in pictures, right? The flies came with us. The flies were following the tuk-tuks, right? And then, of course, the teachers refused to take my children because all the other children were poor too, but at least they were not so dirty than ours, right? Yes. So I said, all right, I do understand, but if they clean, would you take them? They said yes. So I went back to the dump site and there started to be a laundry system, I was ordering water trucks, so they came, then we were like in open pots, we were like heating up water, right? And then we were washing. So I had to buy a second school uniform because the system wouldn't work. So I buy a second school uniform. So okay, in the rainy season, all the uniforms were wet, but the kids didn't care about it. They were so proud that they can go to school. This uniform was the symbol of, wow, I also can go to school, right?
Yeah, of course, became part
and of then I was very happy about it. I tried to make money, and this was 2013, right? And then I thought I should maybe start a foundation in Switzerland. So I started, it was actually ended 2012, and I started a foundation in Switzerland under the name of Smiling Gecko. I can also explain why it's called like this. And then I thought, it's very simple. You always hear these NGOs, now I have a foundation. I don't even know where I have to put the money. I will get so much money. I maybe have to organize a truck.
If only it was so easy.
But it was me, like, a kind of, how should I say? I just believed in this is happened, right? But then, of course, it was not like this, right? And then I had a lot of problem here. The bank wouldn't give me all the money. They were withholding it, for all kind of reasons. And, suddenly the police got very much aware there's a white guy living on the dump site in a shed, and he has like 10 girls and 6 boys in his little shed, So, of course, what happened there, we know all what this can mean. So I've been put in jail a couple of times, and I've always been released. I just had to pay a fine. And at the end, the judge, who was always the same judge, he said, "All right, Mr. Schmid, you are really crazy. How long are you going to be out there?" I said, "Sir, as long as there are children out there, right?
Wow.
And we have child prostitution, I'm going to be there, right? And but I would offer you a lump sum, maybe 5,000, right? And then you let me go. And you don't bother me anymore." He said, "But if you stay there till there is no child anymore out there, this is worth much more than $5,000. I said, okay. But then suddenly he became very friendly to me, and at the end he issued the permit for me so that I was allowed to stay there, and I was not bothered anymore by the police. But I knew that what I do has nothing. It's worthless, bringing to children to school where the teacher can't read and write their own language. I cannot provide there. Then I saw the incapability of that they have no education. I didn't realize that for a long time. For me it's clear everybody can read and write a little bit. So I realized they don't, because I was not literally in Khmer, right? But then I started to realize, well, what is this? They don't understand. Why don't they sign a paper? Why do they use their thumb? Oh, they don't even have a signature. So this is like an alarming kind of a signal, right?
But you're placing, from this very early stage of conception, education is clearly at the heart of everything you're doing, and that continues to this day with the school campus. So you saw very early on that education is that greatest weapon that you have to actually change the set of circumstances you were witnessing in your time here.
Well, for me, it's very surprising. You have very well-educated people who run NGOs. You have very well-educated who coming out of universities, and they're also running the institutions. And you ask yourself, they've never been to school, probably. They just jumped after birth into the university. I mean, what do you do if you don't have not a track record of being integrated in a school, hygienically trained, get the right food? I mean, you don't need to study on a university to find that out. You just have to think back, how did I grow up? Or what was different between how I grew up and how they grew up?
Yes.
And then you start to understand, well, if it's not existing, I have to build a system. Because if you want to be successful in something, right, you need to build a foundation. What is a house without a foundation? What is a corporation without growing from the bottom? You cannot come apple from one day to the other. It's a process. Everything is a process. Our life is a process. So it's actually very simple. Maybe because I'm an artist, and maybe I understand mechanism in a different way, and maybe I'm willing even to suffer, to understand, to maybe bring content in my pictures who are different. When in my pictures a child looks at you, it doesn't just pose. It looks at you and it tells you a message.
Storytelling is a huge part of your art and your photography. I can see that. In fact, maybe that's a good digression to take. I perceive there's a lot of fundraising effort that needs to happen to support Smiling Gecko. I think about your artwork, and there are themes of myths and memories and storytelling that's deeply embedded in that artwork. Do you draw on those skills when you're promoting Smiling Gecko? Or perhaps a better way of asking the question, what are the stories, what are the themes that really connect with your donors and potential donors when you're telling them about the work that you do here?
Oh, I just tell them my story. That's it. I don't have to make up anything. I don't need a piece of paper where I have to read off. I just tell them my stories. I wanted to build my world, my fantasy world. How should life be here for every child, for every family? Not have to live in this kind of situation. Would in Switzerland ever anybody have to live like this? In England, in Australia?
No, not at all.
So you start to question everything. What is it? What are all these NGOs doing? Why is UN here? Why is UNICEF here? Why is GIZ from Germany here? Why are the Swiss here? What are they doing? And what is the government doing?
But the interesting part about that, although we started talking about storytelling, underneath the Smiling Gecko philosophy, if you will, is a systemic approach. You're not just focusing on education, you're focusing on vocational training, you're focusing on community support. Again, a conscious decision or something that you learned as you developed the Smiling Gecko project?
I have to go back in the 50s, right? I was living in a little mountain village. We were 150 people, were about maybe 120 were farmers in Switzerland, a mountain. And then I blended back. I said, why did this function so well? All right, there was a house. It had very tall windows and small windows on top. So on the second level, there were the teachers' home. And underneath, there were the classrooms. And then when we played on the school break, there was a sand pit. And they were like some funny metal construction. So the boys had to climb up and down. So this was actually more or less the pre-military training, right? Right. In Switzerland, you start early.
Clearly.
But what did we had? We had 2 restaurants in this little village. We had 2 churches, Protestant and Catholic. Then we had a butchery. We had a bakery. We had a carpenter. We had a metalwork place. Then we had the guy who did the cheese. And then we had the farmers. So this was a complete, intact, economical community, right? So we were serving ourselves. There was training there, and it was very funny. We had a food supply chain that time. It was called Migros. There was a clever guy who said, well, the people from the country cannot go every day or not even one time to the big village to buy food. So he put actually the grocery store on a truck. So the truck was passing by. So that was a business. They were serving us, and we were lining up on the street. We entered on the back of the truck. We picked what we wanted, and the guy, the driver, was also the cashier, and then we got out of it. All this stuff came back to me, and I said, what is it? So then I started looking to Switzerland, and I said, is in Switzerland, or we are financially, economically just driven by the banks and by the pharmaceutical industry? No, okay, they contribute a big part of our GDP.
Of course.
But actually, that's not what made us what we are today. There's over 40,000 small and medium corporations, and they are integrated in a system. When I have 9 years of school, I can go in one of these corporations because they very well educated people there, and I do an apprenticeship. 4 years. That's what I did as an electrician. After 4 years, I can do a bridge, and I can go back to the university. It's called the dual learning system. That's why Switzerland is what it is. Highly competent in education, one of the richest countries in the world. The Swiss franc is so strong, not because pharma and banks, because the country has a very stable foundation, and we can go through the worst catastrophes, pandemics. Yeah, of course, we have to put maybe the belt a little bit tighter, but it doesn't hurt us at all. And the government has so much money that they can put it, like they did, about over $40 billion. So not to save us, no, so that when pandemic is over, it just goes on like it never happened before. So I started to look at this existing systems, and I found all these little elements, and I just put one and one together. And that's how we grew. And
you've created this stable foundation. I can see that the school is at the heart of it, but surrounding it is the vocational training. It's the family support. It's the growing sustainable produce in the area to be able to feed those communities as well.
What was very important is that I realized very much. I said, look, take it these 5,000 NGOs. One does a little bit here, one does a little bit here, one does a little bit here. So actually, it cannot work because it has to be holistic. Somebody who has been taken in by an NGO, the NGO has to provide a wider space of education, because not everybody is a child. You know, we have all the range up to 50, 60. So in a community, you have to see, actually you have to take care about everyone. And over a period of time, you have to be so far that a certain part of this community is taking about the ones who cannot take care about themselves anymore. So elderly, who've never had anything. So you start to understand that it has to be different structured. One thing might work, it might fail, and then you lose everything. How do you back yourself up? Would you put all your money in one share?
No, of course.
Or would you separate this?
Of course.
Would you put all eggs in one basket? No, of course not. So why don't we do it when we are developing something like this? And all the NGO put their eggs all in one basket. And then they're not even successful. with what they put in, because it cannot be successful, because it has to be carried by the people. For me, I think very quickly I discovered that my biggest challenge on the dump site was trust. I had to gain their trust. There's so many guys come with really nice new Nike shoes, even with a Bible and with 500-gram rice, and they think now they have a better life, and they've been disappointed from one to the other to the other. They've been disappointed and let down from the government, from their own people, from all these foreigners who come in these beautiful new SUVs, nicely dressed, and some of them come like a bit more younger, like teenager, with nice beautiful T-shirts where they have the name on it for what, right? But they would not even enter the dump site because their shoes might get so dirty that they have to throw them away. So that's how this treatment was, and I thought, why is nobody thinking about that? Since over nearly 40 years we do here aid. What have we done in the 40 years? So this came all into, that was my analyzer, say, you know, I start to study the system. Why is this and why is that and why was this and why do they come up but they never enter inside, you know? And word actually down to the grid is the help for these people. That was my first thing. So everything else
flowed on.
Slide on. You just have to maybe copy how you grow up, how your life is.
But that trust element seems to be quite important to promote participatory decision making, to make sure that there's change that's happening with the community, not to it. And I can imagine that might have helped overcome certain cultural obstacles that you would have faced coming in here and building something like this in this particular location. Were there other systemic or other cultural obstacles that you faced? How did you adapt? How did you overcome them?
Well, the problem is you start to realize we always come from the top down because we are the educated one. We take our hat and we put the hat over the people's head. Even that hat doesn't fit, right? And you have to be humbled. You have to understand that they, in some certain situations, they have much more knowledge than you have. They can survive with a frog a day, with a bit of a tree bark and with leaves. We can't. So you have to start to appreciate and respect who they are and what they are. And I always said to everybody, we do this together.
Very good.
But I want that one day I am not needed anymore. And for me it was clear from the beginning, the Cambodians have to do this for Cambodia, because we have proven in the last 30 years that everything we came is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not. And it's only sustainable if they are able to manage themselves, that they can provide, a family can provide money, that their children can go to school, that they have food, that they have medical access. And of course, a lot has to do with the government, but the government, you think, but then maybe it's not alone the government's fault that we are there where we are today. So there is so many questions who is coming up. A steeper you dig, and then of course you do mistakes. You do a lot of mistakes. But today we're not allowed to make mistakes anymore. Our children are not allowed to do mistakes. You have to allow, and you have to allow the people you are taking in or you work together that they can do mistakes. Mistake is the best way to learn. Sometimes, you do the same mistake again and again because you don't give up to believe in what you believe that it is successful till you then really have to find. But that's a process. Maybe in that failure, suddenly you have to fail better. You know, it's a process where maybe I learned this as a child because we weren't so highly educated at that time. There was no access for everything. Maybe we failed. I failed with my goats. I tell you today, when I'm holding talks on international conferences with CEOs and people, I talk a lot about leadership. And I say, I learned my leadership when I was a little boy, guiding 120 goats up to the top of the mountain.
Imagine.
The first time you go there, you not even bring one goat up top to the mountain. They're going to be everywhere.
Of course.
So how do you manage that? How do you get together? With the goats, it's the same thing. You have to be humble. You cannot beat them up. Find out who is the leader of this pack. Then talk to the leader. So this were these little things who made me better understand how could I possibly be successful in what I do.
So there's a question though then around your philosophy of what we have in place today with Smiling Gecko. I appreciate what you're saying, that one day like it, that you wouldn't be needed here, that it was capable of being self-sustaining. So does that mean you view Smiling Gecko through a social enterprise lens or through a philanthropic lens?
Well, the philanthropic lens, I think you have to have, like you have two eyes. So you have two pair of glasses. Philanthropically, you need, because, you have to support, you have to understand there is a need. And in the period you build something up, you also, you have to take care about that. But how can something really survive? It's only economically. So if you look closer to Smiling Gecko, we are more an enterprise. You can call it social enterprise, right? And we much more focused, and we build up all independent. We have 34 small corporations integrated in Smiling Gecko, and they drive to be successful financially. I mean, I have a carpentry. I mean, what do? I do produce 50,000 chairs for myself, 20 chair tables for myself, a cupboard. I need to sell it. For this, I need to be also competent in the market. If my chairs are falling apart after 2 days sitting on it, if they're not really very well built, if they not have at least a little bit of design system, who will ever buy my chairs? Because they maybe be a little bit more expensive than even the chairs. I don't do cheap products. I want to have high quality products so that I have a market and that I can generate money with it. Now, in a country like Cambodia, who is probably the lowest market in the world, is a low price market because nobody has money. How would ever a farmer buy my chair? You know, they need a block of a piece of wood, and then he sits down. They don't have really chairs. And if they buy the plastic chairs for $1.50 from the Chinese, right? You find them everywhere. But then you have to find a market before you start to go in a direction. You have to analyze, would somebody buy what I do? Would somebody buy my chicken? Would somebody buy my fish? Would somebody come and stay in my hotel? Every company has to do that.
Yes, of course.
I mean, you're not going to produce something for a society where nobody buys.
Yes, of
right?
course.
So me as an NGO, if I go that way, and I think it's a must to go that way, I have to analyze. And then I'm in a market. So there's maybe 20 people, they produce the same thing. So then I have to find out, what could I do different? Or instead open up a niche, something they don't produce. I mean, this is very common. This makes common sense.
It does.
And of course, in our countries, we don't have to do that because that's already in the system. You know, if you have in a village 5 bakeries and they all do the same bread, I mean, 4 will disappear. But if you have each one has a speciality, they all could live. Maybe not on that kind of level, but they could survive. So that's what you have to analyze. Very simple, survival.
So let's talk about the analysis and a little bit of the financial analysis if we can. And complete transparency, we've talked through the numbers yesterday evening. What you have here is truly world-class facilities. And I look at the school complex, for example. It's as good as any school I've ever seen in the world in all my experience. That comes at a price. The secondary school, a couple of $1 million to build. My understanding is the ongoing operational expenditure for the school is about 1.7 million Swiss francs per annum.
Yes.
About something like that.
Rising.
And rising.
I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of it.
I can imagine, but it sets, if it's rising, it also sets a rising bar to achieve break even through all the social enterprises that we just spoke about. How do you balance the quality aspiration and the ongoing financial sustainability and the viability of what you're building here?
I think this is, of course, I think it's a very good question. It's a question I've been asked many times, even from private people and institutions. How long does it go? I said, I don't know. I don't even know why you ask me this question. How is a school in Australia or in Switzerland financed? Well, that is the government. And then still, it depends if you go to a private school or not. The parents have to pay in. And then students have a life beside the school. They might go in sport, they might go in music, they might go in this, and they become a member of a swimming club, and they like to go to the Olympics and everything. And total, this is also financed by the private people. Now, how can you explain me that I can deliver a comprehensive education to children and not having a long plan of 20 years? Like that's what we have. How can I go into a school where I think I run with the possible minimum of money, but I don't jeopardize the quality of education? Not only learn children counting, reading, and learning it by heart, and not be introduced to the rest of the life education you need. It's more than counting and reading and spelling. We have to prepare these children for their life after school. And then you start to realize, oh my God, this is not done in 6 years primary or 12 years or 15 years. So in a society who is so poor that they cannot even afford to invest any money from the parent side in the children's education, it's maybe 25 years. So then you have to explain this to the reader. And I think very often when I talk to readers, people are shocked because they live in their bubble. In Switzerland, an education of a child in the primary is between $35,000 and $40,000 a year. In Cambodia, government spent $40 a year for a child, $500 for a student. I told you, you don't need to take your electro-digital calculator. You're just going to find out this is not going to happen.
Yes.
Right? So you say you have to enforce a system change. And for this, we need the people from the outside, but maybe till the government starts to realize that the most important investment, and also from the outside, the most important investment is in early child education, because there is no dumb children. There's only children we don't feed. Then we have a problem of the cognitive system, cannot develop. And second of all, they have no value to us. So there is only slavery in factories. So that's how I try to explain it. But then to make the money is the other thing.
Yeah, of course. It's hard. Right? It requires external funding, at least in the short to medium term, no?
Yeah, but the frustration is that you have big institutions and they would have the money to fund this, but they don't fund this because they have different agendas and they have different kind. Our world, our highly economically driven world, is using other measurements to measure something.
Yes.
So education is usually binded or connected to the per head BIP, to the GDP per head.
And so that $40 is probably proportionate to the, $2,000 GDP per capita in Cambodia?
Yeah, it's low.
It's quite low, right?
So yeah, you can never. We have a 37 billion GDP. 12.4 billion is export to America. That's another problem. That's the clothes and the shoes. And then we have 17 million people. So it's about a $2,000 GDP. So then when you calculate this down in a ratio, with 2,000, so you can maybe spend $40. In Switzerland, we have nearly 100,000 GDP.
And what's the cost here for the school per child?
$3,600 a year.
Wow.
So it's 10% for an equivalent education in all the fields, like what we have in, I don't know what the cost is in Australia or in England, but it's all about the same. And the 30, say in Switzerland, the $35,000 to $40,000 is only to school. I'm not talking about medical, clothes, any kind of sports, any kind of extra things you have. So actually, if you calculate that, the child costs more than 100,000 in Switzerland a year. And we run this with 3,600 because we do everything. We feed the kids. We have a dental clinic, medical clinic. We have sports. We have arts and crafts, right? We have comprehensive 2 languages where we like to do more, especially on the English side.
Yes.
But I would love to have the Singaporean education system. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. So we have early child, actually it's Cambridge, what we have. It's speaking and reading. It's not even the comprehensive Cambridge program again. It's also on the problem on the teacher side. And then after we have Khmer, and Khmer is so complicated that it takes a lot of hours. I mean, how many hours a day? Our kids start at 6 in the morning coming in, and then we have to do all the other stuff. We have to shower them, we have to feed them, right? We have to do all this whole thing. And I mean, can you imagine what it needs to feed 500 kids nearly at the same time in the morning?
No,
and then they are here till 4. They have to go home by 4, 5. It's dark at 6. So we only have these hours, and we use all these hours. Why we also have to give them a rest over lunchtime. The little one, the bigger ones, we don't give them rest anymore. We see they have to learn that also in a company you can go and sleep. You have an hour break and then it goes on, right? But it's all a mechanism where the parents not used to it. They're not by themselves not used to it, right? But actually, I have not enough hours in a day. And then we have to give them off times, and we cannot afford to run more than 5 days a week.
Yeah, of course.
The cost with every day goes up, 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 up. We have teachers, they need their break time too. They also have to revise their programs, their whole things. And then we have school holidays, and the school holidays, they're the worst for me because they go home and there is nothing. Nobody's doing anything with them. So if the child doesn't have the initiative, it doesn't even do reading or homework or everything. How do we communicate to the child that you should go on? Don't stop. Read your book. You can take the book home. We have a library. Take it home. Read. But then they're children, right? And then they are going back in their community, and that is everything else is important than reading a book. So you have all these kind of things, where yes, it's difficult, and still. Of course, we're fighting also a lot of cultural problem. We have now 15, 16, 17-old boys and girls, and families are very, very poor, so they want to send them to the factory. So we have weekly discussing with parents where they say, look, we need $100. It has to go to the factory. I said, but if you wait a little bit longer, the child can provide much more to the family, right? With an education, you maybe get $400-500 a month. But then again, the education is not done. After 12, 13 years of school, they're still not done. They have to learn a particular trade. They have to be there. And this costs again money on top of it. So it's, I call it, it's the hamster in the wheel, or it's a rat race, what we are dealing with. So what do we do then? Do we say, all right, we reimburse you. We give you the $100 a month, but actually, do we buy the children then so that they can go to school?
It's a complex relationship.
It's a very complex relationship, and then a lot of them, maybe if it's 1 or 2 child, is possible, but we have 500. So then maybe there's another 80 who coming and say, well, can you pay for me too? I also need $100.
So that's an interesting follow-on question then, right? So I look at the infrastructure that you've built. One could argue that you could build not lower standards. You want to build something that lasts, but there is a certain philosophy about your architecture, the design principles you've built into it, and the buildings are expensive to build, right? We talked about the secondary school building. Someone might say, well, you could build 5 more simple constructs and support 2, 3, 4,000 school children at the same price per annum. It strikes me from the conversation we had yesterday evening, you were talking about there being a philosophy of the architecture, that there's something about the principles of maintaining that high standard. I wonder if you can talk to that, because honestly, it was the question that was on my mind when I first visited Smiling Gecko.
You're right. You're completely right, and this is also the criticism we get. But it always depends what you compare with. Our middle school building was about, I would say 400,000 more expensive because we suffered some construction problem. We're building on agricultural land in the dry season. You maybe say, Johannes, you do mistake after mistake. Our survey was done with the soil, with the ground, right? And from the survey companies, and we used a very good one, it was considered stable. But then the rain came. And then we started to realize it's not stable at all with that amount of water. Maybe it has changed through the environmental change we have. So we had to put in 280 piles, 8 meter long. We had to hit them in the ground. And I mean, I tell you, in Europe, this will be the end of your school, right? So, okay, at the end, the school, the way it's today, with everything inside, with a functional kitchen, with everything in there, is about 2 million. Now, I compare this to Switzerland. If you buy a 2-room apartment in the city of Zurich, it will be more than 2 million without a garage, without even a parking lot. So you always have to little bit of care. Yes, it's a lot of money for here, but is it a lot of money where you have to provide to something who is sustainable? Living in a building has also to do with your future. It will influence your future. Unfortunately, we have more and more architects. They don't build architecture for humans. They build it for themselves. Your bloody bedroom has 6 corners, right? And your ceiling is coming slightly down from one to the other. And you have overproportioned windows, where you have to invest so much money that you can control the temperature and everything. So, and then there is a couple of architects, I think they have a philosophy to build a different environment. Why started we with everything is in one line? That was with the university, Technical University of Architecture in Switzerland, because we wanted to give the children a clear view of direction. When you get integrated in a school, you have to find your space. So the best is our kids walk in a little line, like ants behind each other. Why? Because you have to get trained when you especially come from that outside world to a system. And then they grow up. They grow up in the system. And the buildings are made for an environment. We don't need energy, right? We damn down the noise. And we are a very big sample for our children. We collect every drop of water.
Yes.
The way it's built, so that we can fill a lake with that. And then we have built it out of existing material. It's bricks, it's wood, everything. Time has changed. We can't afford the wood anymore because the forests are locked out, right? And today, I think you better move in steel. Even steel is not even actually environmentally friendly, but you have to have a framework. You need a construction. So they are used to that. And now they go into 7th grade, right? And now suddenly they find themselves in a round building. That's exciting. You can see each other on the balcony. You go down and you can mingle around on the center tropical garden. And it becomes more open, your spirit.
That's a philosophy.
And they're not more expensive to build at the end. We have to build visual models.
Yes.
That there is a school and there is a different school. I mean, everybody comes and says, wow, 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 wow. And maybe it triggers something, even the local. I mean, that our ministers are so proud of this school. They schlep everybody here. Before I came here, nobody visited Kampong Chenang. Now, every ministry, every foreign guest they bring here. They're proud of what we have built. It's not us. It's who owns it. It's they own it. I always said, it's yours. If a minister who comes here and sees the Gong Wise, I said, did you realize that's yours? Well, why is it mine? I said, well, it's your heritage. We just provide you with the base. Now it's yours. Now help us to go on. When somebody comes and look at the school, a minister, and this is, wow, what is this round school? I said, it's your school. And to the children and to my employees, I said, when we have meetings, I said, you have to realize, you always believe it's mine. Not. I'm here on a business visa valid for 1 year. I don't own anything. You own it, and you take care like it is yours. So it's that giving it already from the beginning, and we give it already over to the local construction company, to our when we're building it. They building their house. It's not me not building their house. They building their own house, and I think this is a different philosophy. That's why we are so deep integrated in our community here.
And I have to say, you mentioned this kind of wow factor. I was here a few weeks ago under the auspices of the National University of Singapore. They're running a program, the Distinguished Senior Fellowship Program. And we came out here for some workshops and your team here kindly showed us around. And we walked through the school and it has a wow factor. I was really taken by the combination of modern design principles with traditional heritage. So modern design, to your point, everything's at a 6 degrees angle, so the water runs off, right? So the school stays open even when it's raining heavily. Fantastic. But then there's these very traditional roof structures, the overhang to prevent glare coming into the buildings, the air cavity for air circulation in the roof. But then this very traditional bamboo false ceiling, which I then learned was a heat shield. So it keeps the classrooms at a constant 25 degrees temperature. I think, we spoke about it. I look after a charity in Sri Lanka. We focus on education in rural communities over there. And I'm totally borrowing that idea. I mean, it's a fantastic idea. I'm wondering, was that conscious? Are there other traditional principles that you're trying to build into the design process? Is it part of that sense of co-ownership? Like you say, even that circular building that reminded me of the, we were talking about it before, the Tulo design, right? From Fujian province in China. It just, is that part of the co-ownership process? Is it a very conscious decision to embrace heritage in those design principles?
Well, the good thing that I'm an 80-year-old man and I reflect a lot what I've been through my life. It's Taoism, it's Hinduism, it's Buddhism, it's Christianity, and all these had a very big influence in the way we build. The way we grow up, we are more into Christianity, If you go to South America, the difference between South America and Asia is because Christianity is very strong in South America, where here it's not very strong, but it has other elements. So I think you start to discover things, very simple things, and one of the most important thing I discovered was actually in the engravings in Angkor Wat. I didn't study Angkor Wat, but I felt so funny that on these murals, all the time I started to discover an instrument. It's the gong. And you started to think, hey, and you think, oh, it's nice. So they had music already, or okay, they used it in the war. The soldier, they were carrying them on and they were banging on it so that they had more power to kill the others, right? But then you say, this is a very deep symbol inherited, where even you find it in Egypt, you even find it in Europe. So why don't you start to base the gong, you hit, and then waves go out. But waves not only go one direction. Waves also can come back again. So wouldn't that be a symbol to build a lot of things on that idea that we have to send signals outside, and then from the outside there is other signals coming back? Is it not called communication? What is it? But wouldn't it be beautiful if you have this as your center? So then automatically you come to this kind of designs. Then life is not going in one straight. It's around, it's a circle, and everything is a circle. We're born, we go up, we grow up. It's all a circle, and very often things is repeating ourselves in our lives. So make the mistakes again. So this is not, if you go straight, you can never make a mistake again, what you have done. But if it's round, yes, you have. So that means you start to find out that actually all these round circles fits very much in their culture, in their belief. And then, of course, you have to deal with a lot of obstacles, is how can you have air ventilation and still there's no water coming in the building? Yes. And then how far you have to have overstand, so you cut all the light who comes in. I don't want to have switching on my light during the day. I don't want to have air conditioning classrooms because the people don't live in air conditioning. So all this you have to adapt, right? And actually that is automatically, you come to this kind of shapes, right? And then you start to actually to realize they are very good shapes.
Yes. I mean, this building itself, we're recording this in the Gong, which is an arts and cultural space in the heart of Smiling Gecko, and that I found that super interesting, that you have placed so much emphasis on art and culture, and it strikes me that many people might argue that it's a luxury, right? It's something that you could afford to do without and just focus on education. But it strikes me you're placing art and culture very much. The heritage of Cambodia is deeply embedded in the Smiling Gecko project. That feels very intentional to me.
Culture, that's our roots. That's our identification. That's where we come from, and that's also where we go. This has been taken away in the 80s by Pol Pot, and it has never given the people back. So who are these Cambodians? They are Chinese, Vietnamese, or who are they? I mean, it's a black spot. And nobody is really, there's a little bit, all the wealthier, they maybe perform, or they do some of the dances and stuff like this. But it's not reachable for 80% of the public because they not even have the money to get connected. They cannot drive with a moto on a culture event. The only culture they see weekly and in their festival, it's the pagodas. But they don't participate. They only consume. When I started to produce music with my students, it was actually a Christmas song. It was really funny that I started to realize there's a lot of fantastic artists here, but they have no legs, no arms, because there's no recording studios. They don't have the money to go some in the music. There's not really performance. There's a classical orchestra here who hardly can survive because nobody wants to listen to their music. There's maybe 2 times, 3 times a year where there is a hotel doing for European, and they show that the French brought the classical music here and they play Bach, Beethoven and Chopin. But they say they can't survive. There is people there since 20 years, they practice their instrument and they're good. There's no market. We have to realize for everything we want to profit from, it needs a market. If nobody buys your stuff, you can play the whole day for yourself, how do you survive? So that for me was clear, we have to do something. We have to bring something back, what was always very important and is important to us. And then I came up with the idea, why don't we build a house of culture? Where our identity here is created through that we try to find everything what's still left. Our duty is not even, you only let them learn to read, to write, and how you grow maybe more eel out of your rice field or your chickens or whatever you do. We have to give them back their culture. And maybe this can change the whole society because they become more stable, stronger, you know, they believe more in themselves, and suddenly they become proud about themselves.
Yes. I think there's a question about, you know, when is art, and I think there's an argument that says that art exists when there's a sense of shared identity or shared meaning that evolves, and that seems to me super important for the philosophy of what you're trying to achieve here.
Take the big artists, you can take Pablo Picasso, Monet, you can all take them. They all reflected a certain time, and maybe they were artists like me. Maybe they were thinking different. Maybe they produced something where we need all that years till today to understand what they wanted to say us, right? And I don't compare myself with one of these big artists but it's about the same. Why not another guy who has done all his PhDs and everything will come with the same ideas? Why doesn't he? He's a little guy who grew up in the Swiss mountain as a mountain goat with the mountain goats. Why does it need me? And how long will my strengths go? And how long can I fight? And I fight every single day, and I'm tired of it.
I can imagine.
It's very funny. I'm writing my book now, and of course everybody say, "Oh, what is your book called? What is your book called?" Unfortunately, I cannot take that title because it has taken by somebody who is not really positive. I would call it Mein Kampf.
Mein Kampf, that would be an unfortunate title. I think that has negative connotations these days.
It is true. My fight, my personal fight. And then I have to say at the same time, without all these people, this would have never been possible. I'm the guy with the vision. I'm the guy with the flag. I'm the guy who is driving everybody. But everything then is done not by me. I'm not the carpenter. I'm not building the building. I'm not being out on the field and digging the soil and the fertilizer and everything. This is done by the local people. And I need all these local people here. And maybe my power is to inspire them to believe that there is another future, to believe that, you know, if they work and make money, that things will change. And that they believe that when we take their children and put in a school who is so alien for them, but this will change their future. But that's all. I'm still a simple guy who has this spirit and this idea. And you see, I come in and immediately, of course, I come in and I say, why is this still here? Why is it not put away? Why do I have motorbikes out here when I drive here? I don't want to see the motorbikes. Why do you do this? So they're still not there to see things because they've never been introduced. I cannot blame them. They've never been introduced that when you come, that you want to have a view, that you want to see it looks nice.
You're incredibly active still. I just see that just in the work you have, the interactions with personnel here.
You know, I question everything with my team, with all my HOD. I want every 3 months, I want to question everything. Is it right? What do we do? Is there a market? Why doesn't it work here? Why doesn't it work here? We have to question it. Are we on the right path? I mean, if we start to get self-satisfied and think, oh, what we do is great. Oh, you know, we don't have to change anything. This is the end of it.
Yes, end of days.
But this is what they have to learn, to question themselves, their work, their life, their family, that where they are. And otherwise, they will sit the next 100 years in front of their shed here, and there will be nothing else, right? So that's again then my duty. And I must say the people are incredible. I mean, my founding partner I have here with him, there would be nothing going. He is much more valuable to this project than me in the meantime, you know, because we became a very strong build organization. I told you we just had to go through an evaluation.
Yes.
Where I was very happy actually that it was being forced on us, because we did this in 2019 and it was for the rubbish bin, because it was everything under the structure. Why do I have to do an evaluation according to the AOC standards? I mean, that's my reference to this is then when I have people, they force me for that. I said, didn't have Credit Suisse and OECD evaluation? Did they have all the standards? And now you can explain why did they went bankrupt? So what was it really? You have just a piece of paper where you just put on, you can put on actually anything what the others want here. Or has it to do about the deep structure? And Smiling Gecko still is a family corporation. And why are we nearly giving 97 cents of a dollar into the community's project, where other maybe give 20, 30 and eat up the rest by themselves because they have the AOC system? And I think not everything has to be been in that kind of kind of systems. Maybe
I
there
agree.
is individual systems where you have to say, is it really needed for us? Or is it also give you more to the single person, more responsibility if you don't have like 20 CEOs and 5 this one and 5 board members here and another board here and another board there, and then you have all discussions, and that's what I deal with. Everybody knows everything better, but nobody really have the experience of what the situation is here. You know, so this is where you then suddenly we are out of being a little startup. We are really more a social enterprise. I think that's also where we place us. But then you suddenly start to fight internally. You not only fight to the outside, so you fight internally too, right? Because they all come with their standards.
Of course.
And their standards you cannot apply.
One of those, just thinking about where we are today and maybe a little bit into the future, one of those standards might be one of environmental sustainability. I'm super curious about that. I noticed that you recycle water. I noticed the solar panels as we drove here to the Gong. How important is that for you to have that degree of energy resilience or energy security or that kind of self-sufficiency? The environmental sustainability component.
Well, you know, you always have 2 sides. One thing that wind and solar is the future, and the other one thing that's the end of it. Because how do we supply everything who has been driven by electricity? You know, what is the cost of that? And is it environmentally really that good? I'm not questioning it yes or no. I just say we have to look in all the details. We got 5-year-old solar panels here, 1,000 from the Italian government. The reason was that the people who imported them from China, they couldn't pay the tax. So they had to destroy it. So by my connections I have, they say, hey, do you want them? But they have to leave the country and you're not allowed to sell. We pay the transport. So that's how 1,000 solar settle came here. So we were building it up, we communicated, we were very happy. The Italian, it's the custom department, very happy. Well, we have the solar cells, right? And then we were actually surprised how little came out of it. And we surprised how in the dry season is even less coming out because there's a lot of dust and that I need about, I don't know how many people who wash them down every day and clean them. And then also we have rainy season where it's cloudy, then it's not coming out. And then you see, okay, solar panels, okay, but how effective they're really over a period of time. And then you've been told, yeah, it's the older generation. And, you know, if you would have new generations, it would be better and better and things. I say, yes, but these generations we have, there's maybe, I don't know, 100 million panels being produced, 100 million panels. We have used resources, you know, from special earth, from this, from that. And now they're telling me after 7 years now or 8 years, we have to replace them. So what does it mean to recycle this one?
How do you dispose of them?
What we focus on from the beginning, because we didn't have the money and we have to live from what we get, is biodiversity. What is more important maybe as the energy at the moment for us? The farmers, they used to live without energy. They can have maybe one little solar panel and they can charge the battery they need at night for a torch or for something else. What is needed for each area in this world? For me, biodiversity.
I could see that.
Using no chemicals, no chemical fertilizers, no pesticides who destroy, who I need years, 20 years to get it out of the ground. I can have the best energy. I can't get the chemicals out of the ground, right? So what is more important for certain areas? Here, I think consumption of a local person in energy to compare to Switzerland is not even 1%.
It's irrelevant.
So what is more important, right? And of course, everybody says, oh, do you have solar? Oh, do you have this? You have this. And, you know, also wastewater is a part of our environment. I can pollute the whole areas because it's not just going somewhere and then it being held in a tank. It goes in my groundwater, right? And groundwater goes everywhere.
And you're recycling your water here,
yeah,
right?
Of course. This is the what system is very simple. And also, instead of having one big plant, we have 20 small plants because then the piping is closer. The effect is better. And I can use what is recycled for agricultural water. I can even make drinking water out of it. But then there is again, then I have to have a drinking water plant. That means technology again. I need mechanics. I need to you know, everything costs money. Right? And here the farmers, unfortunately, they live on pumps who go 30 meters deep. We have arsen. We highly arsenic infected here. Arsen is a metal. It's water dilutable. As more water I have, as more arsenic It's like caffeine. If you drink a lungo, right, in America, you're never going to sleep again. But if you drink an espresso, you're going to be zoozing away and you have your sweetest dream. So it's very understandable, right? But then the problem is the 30-meter PAM, 35-meter PAM, they have no water in the dry season. When do they need water? It's in the dry season. And then the groundwater goes down because we don't have enough floods anymore. We have a lot of rain, but the rain is not enough to fill our groundwater reservoir. Okay. We have very kind of porous soils here. And it filters. And then you have to dig 120 to 180 meter deep till your water is clean. It's very highly mineralized, but all actually the bad stuff is filtered out by sand and clay and through the stones.
We have the same thing in Sri Lanka. We have to go about 120 meters. We still have to put a reverse osmosis water treatment plant on top because there's a pollutant in the soil or whatever, right? And groundwater carries risks of chronic kidney disease and other problems.
So now if you have chemical substances in your field, it's going to be in your groundwater.
Of course.
I mean, where does it go? It's not only the soil, it's only the groundwater. So at the end, you pollute everything. So you have to start to think about what is priority of environmental care. It's not the solar energy.
In context.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not against it.
I understand.
But it has to make sense.
The answers are not so black and white.
We're not looking at a particular place with a loop. No, we're looking, everything is global.
And so maybe let's use that as a kind of a final framing question. I think about this place. It is incredibly place-based. It's hyper local. It's hyper contextual. You really get a sense of place when you're here. Thinking about now the next 3-5 years of development. What plans do you have? We've talked a little bit before about whether this is truly could be replicated elsewhere. Interesting conversation in itself, but just think about how you scale or where you intend to grow this particular place. What plans and aspirations do you have for Smiling Gecko?
Well, again, I think we really think where we like to go, but between like to go and where we go at the end is also depending on a lot of help from the outside. I think we come to the point where we have created a model.
Yes.
To duplicate. In this country, we need the government. If we want to duplicate it in Thailand, we need the government. We cannot go and build this up because that one single person who had all the drive is probably not so long here anymore. And does he has the power to go somewhere else and start from the scratch? We have we have a book you can read about how we build it up. And if you go to Africa with this is now in the discussion. It's the government, the Kenyan government, they're going to come and visit. And they're highly interested to build up this system around Arusha Moshi, this is around the Kilimanjaro, because there's similar situations in agriculture like here, right? But we can over that guidance. But then there needs to be other people. What's more important is we have to find people, governments, institutions who can actually see the possibility a cluster system like this would bring in the future, right? Would it be wider help the community to develop in all the sense agriculture? We also have to look at it because what is the need in the next 50 years? It's definitely food. So while it's nice if you have IT and ChatGPT and all this is all fine, but wouldn't we better focus on how do we still grow fish, vegetable in this change of climates, in water temperatures are rising, and what would it be? Or is that just like a part of Africa is producing vegetables for the rest of the world? And in Brazil they do the coffee and the cocoa, and and in Switzerland we produce high technologies, or would that work? So I think, of course, we want to proceed in education because we see a huge demand for higher education focused on agriculture, food processing, certain parts of medicine and business. But there will only be a certain amount of the population be able to be there, because maybe in 25 years, if you have educated our children here to coming to that level, still it will be a fraction. Actually, the country then has to start to educate in a new system. So of course that, and for us, what we're really fighting for is stability, financial stability, that our small little project, right, is able to be independent and not have to live from sources from the outside, financial sources. But for this, again, it's not on us. It's on the market, the country give, the support the country gives to grow. It's the help of the tourists who come here. Also, how long can I go out there and tell my story?
Yes.
To inspire other people, young people, that it is not everything to go in an university, that there is different ways you can contribute. Well, we have forgotten about it, that we are humans, we are here, we are living from each other. We also have to contribute to each other. I can only run around with my flag. And thanks God I got on a doctor's in 2019, right? And now people believe what I say. Even can tell them the sky is pink. Oh, Mr. Kollega, yeah, I think you're right. Sometimes it's pink. You know what I mean? It's this, how many people we can influence, how many people can make clear, because I say, like governments, they're a little bit like the Titanic. You know, we all sit on this best boat built ever, right? Can never sink. We don't realize that also for our society, for us, there is an iceberg. And we're going to hit and we're going to drown. So this is a bit, I have dreams. I try to implement my dreams here. But then at the end, if you want to grow, it's not up to yourself anymore. It's it needs more than that. And yeah, I go as long as I can. But if I'm really successful at the end, I don't know.
But it strikes me that this place is an opportunity for people to come, to visit, to explore what you've built, and maybe to ask some of those questions of themselves, what it takes to build, you know, a community, a society that genuinely cares for itself and is able to look after itself. I think you are creating a very intentional space for people to ask those questions and to think more deeply about some of these societal issues. And for that, I think you should be applauded. Leap should be applauded. The community here.
We have everybody to applaud here, right? I always think just come here for 2-3 days. That's one thing. But come here and live here. Come be, connected to our children's homes, to the problems their family has, you know. So
it takes a particular type of person to be able to do that, though, to be able to stay here for a longer period of time. We come with all sorts of prejudices or preconceptions or assumptions. Living life here, it's quite isolated, be quite challenging.
They all dream to do something like this, but then when it comes to reality...
But that's how we have to, that's the job, isn't it? I mean, I meet people that I care about something. I want to know what you're doing about it. I see that dynamic with the work I do with the foundation. And I think the trick is to have the conversation where there is that sense of co-ownership, where people are prepared. So maybe my final question to you, how do you convince people? How do you convince people to care enough to engage, to commit, donating, giving time, resources, advocating for what you're doing? What do you find?
Well, we have that, and without that, we would be lost. We have large corporations who donate, who do their corporate social responsibility with us. Now it's like Etihad, that's our latest new one. Because they have their interest. They fly into this country, they have a direct flight. So they need to prove something. They have CSR. Now in October, a couple of days, they come here and they build a greenhouse for us, right? And they do their press conferences. They hear Maria, she's cooking for business and first class. So we have a thing, and I mean, corporations are forced. They don't really like to do that. They're forced to do that. Today, you cannot profit from society and not giving back, whatever form it is, right? But then every corporation has his own world, you know. The guy who produces, I don't know, machines, they want to have a relation if you have these machines, and the other one does fertilizer, so do you use my fertilizer? So you know what I mean? So
enlighten
okay.
Self-interest.
It's okay, yeah, but CSR is self-interest at the end, because they don't do it really by their free will. They have to do it because their workers and their society is asking for that kind of engagement. So yeah, it's you just don't give up. You try to find your connections, and well, the fact comes down to make everybody guilty that we have everything and they have nothing. And then you have to compare this to their family, to their children, to their society. How would it be? Right? And I think, yes, this also holds on. So I always say, when you do talks, things, you have to close the bag after the talk. I mean, that's where they're the most willing to commit.
Of course.
If you ask 2 days later, they're back in their life. So this is this is the challenge I face. Also, the challenge is, I am replaceable or not? Or do I have the strengths to build such a strong project and society here that when I go, it doesn't need me? I also, and that's the problem for me, it's responsibility, it's the guilt not to fulfill my responsibility to any kind of circumstances, that I become ill. that I don't have the power anymore. And at the other hand, I come to the point where I cannot be responsible be after my death. I have to hand it over to other people, and I have to trust that the people will continue, maybe not the same way, maybe in a different way.
Of course.
But maybe if it sticks a little bit to the philosophy, I was able to implement, to hand it over, to train people, that there is something left of that, and but it's out of my control.
Of course.
But again, when you're driven like me, you don't sleep anymore. Every night, you have to find the money, and every night you see something you have to change, and every night, every day you get up here and you walk around, you see things where I think, okay, I have to tell him again, I have to tell him again. Who is walking around when I'm not here anymore to tell him again and again? So, but that's also, I have to learn now in my situation, also in my health situation, that I learn to live with it, and that I have to give up, and that I have to step back, and maybe I also, the handicap, because I'm the guy, maybe they're all waiting till I come and tell them what to do. It's so you have to analyze a little bit yourself. So I'd have taken me out completely what daily business is. I'm not involved in daily business, right? We have meetings, I looking over, I say, look, from my point on direction, I think we're very democratic, organized here. Everybody here has a say. Our workers have a say. Everything. We have a lot of talks we do to find out. Also, we have to be careful after a while being here. You move away from what the daily problem of a family is, because I'm not integrated in the families anymore. I'm integrated more on the other side. So I catch myself very often that I say I'm quite far away from. The situation has changed in the past 10 years. The need has changed, right? So sometimes, I fall like this whole kind of model that we think what I think is the most important, because things are changing, yeah. But I think as a last word of mine is that I'm a very, very privileged human being, that I'm allowed to do what I do in my age.
And that's a wonderful gift. And Hannes, I hope that you get to continue to tell these stories for many years to come. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have spent some time with you today and yesterday evening. Long may it continue. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Well, I thank you very much. And it was very nice for me to talk to you.